Oh, well, I hope nobody was thinking this when they decided to end the season and they look at our show and they say, all right, we're going to decide to stay or go. How are we going to do with this show during the off season? Well, you know what you have to do. You have to stay. You have to stick with us Monday through Friday, 2:30 every day during the off season because we are keepers here when talking about the Philadelphia 76ers. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, along with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna's producing, as always. You in the chat. And you're like, Devon, what are you talking about, staying or go? Well, as much as we talk about free agents and the message that Daryl Morey shared with the media on Monday with his press conference, one thing we didn't talk about, which I know a lot of you are very interested in, as are we, the current free agents from the 76ers roster from the 23-24 season and who should stay and who should go. So with this episode, we're going to go over a lot of who should remain on the team, look at some contractual situations, how they're going to fit under the cap, what makes sense financially for Daryl Morey when looking at these free agents, and how to put things together for this basketball team. Derek, I know you're ready for this, man. You got all the numbers and stuff ready for us?
I'm always ready.
You're always ready.
Always ready.
Yeah, man. This is going to be a
Derek's
fun
got the numbers. I got pure gut instinct over here.
So it's going to be fun. We hope that you all interact, of course, as always, in the chat.
The great thing with your gut, though, is like I can't like sit here and yell at the camera about numbers. So, you know, you have a little more fun with it.
Well, I'll say it right away. Martian Lynch said, when Daryl said Paul Reed's name, I turned it off. So there's that. There's that already. So there's a lot to it, Kyle, as we go through this. There are a lot of interesting names, though, when you look back at the season, how it all played out to get to where we were. 6th game in the first round against the New York Knicks, but some decent names there with the Sixers.
Well, that's the thing, right? So one of the major consequences we talked about dating back to right when we started the company was they have a ton of expiring guys because they're loading up for next summer. And while the flexibility argument is great, the big time free agent, the max type guy that you can potentially get is great. To Joel's point that he made about continuity and roster building, and this is how it's done at the highest levels in the league, it's going to be very difficult to keep many, if any, of these guys moving forward, because you might get down to, well, let's just, and for theory's sake, we'll say they signed Paul George. I personally don't think that's going to happen from where we sit today, but let's say they sign Paul George. Well, their cap space is then shaved by a ton. They don't have
49 million. Sorry, I'm the numbers guy.
Exactly. See? That's why you're the numbers guy. By 49 million. And then if we're talking about somebody like Kelly Oubre, if Kelly Oubre is potentially getting a mid-level, which what's that, like 12 or 13 next year, I think, Derek, somewhere in that range.
The regular mid-level?
For the full mid-level.
Yeah. 12.
So if Kelly gets the full mid-level somewhere, you're going to have to make a tough choice. Do you care about him enough to pay that type of money, or do you have to let him walk on to literally greener pastures? So
12.859 million.
See,
exact.
I did know that. I know the CBA and the cap projections well enough to remember that. But yeah, that's this whole season. It was like, okay, they're good, and when Joel plays, they're very good. But it really tells us so little about what they're going to look like moving forward, because it's just not possible to keep these guys and accomplish what they want to do. So that's why this stay or go question is so fascinating. You are going to have to make some very difficult decisions and potentially turn over 80% of the roster, maybe.
Yep. No, I mean, the financial crunch, especially if they do what they want to do, is going to be severe, and it's going to play a key role in a lot of what we're going to say here. There are probably going to be some conclusions I arrive at that some people are going to be angry by, and it's not even going to be a basketball evaluation thing. It's going to be I think they're going to get more money elsewhere. We'll just tease that a little bit. You can probably all infer who I'm referring to, but it is, if you want to go out there and big game hunt, and Daryl Morey, like we said in yesterday's show, sent a very clear signal that he still wants to big game hunt. Well, there are going to be some sacrifices made in terms of depth, and what you believe in, B-ball Paul or Kelly Oubre or players like that, they are going to cost money. In Paul's case, we know exactly what he would cost if you keep him on the roster. And Kelly, it's a little more uncertain. But those kind of players could end up getting in the way in that. And it'll be interesting to see what they prioritize for sure.
All right, so the few names that we already know, as Marshall Lynch pointed out, the Paul Reed piece. Paul Reed, at least for right now, he's still under contract with the 76ers. Is not guaranteed. It would have been fully guaranteed had they advanced to the second round. No longer guaranteed in that way. It's non-guaranteed. It will be fully guaranteed somewhere around January. With that, he also mentioned Ricky Council IV, who they signed at the end of the season before the playoffs got underway. And, of course, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. Maxey right now up for an extension, which we all believe he'll get the max extension. From there, we also included Turk Smith as a two-way player that we would at least like to see back, see the development continue with the Delaware Bluecoats and the Philadelphia 76ers, and see where that goes. So after that, folks, it's a lot of names remaining. It's about 12 more people to discuss here. So those 5, we looked at them and said that they are in. They're going to remain. Is that fair, Kyle? Those 5 right there, including
Go through
Turk,
the list again.
Turk, Ricky
I wasn't
Council,
listening either, Kyle, so we're good.
Turk, Ricky Council, Paul Reed, at least for what Daryl Morey said.
No, I didn't include Paul.
I was just saying, I don't think I included Paul.
Okay.
So we can get it. That might be a good jumping off point, right?
I mean, that's in part because of financial reasons and in part because Daryl Morey, some would suggest, can be a liar. So public comments, you never
That's
really
fair.
know.
So if you can see the graphic there that Bree has put up there where 2 X's, that's Derek and Kyle. And I was the one that said, yeah, mainly because of what Morey said about being on the roster for right now. Yeah. And he could potentially still be here. And this is the other part. If they don't necessarily do what they want to do in the offseason, he can remain on the roster until something happens, and he can be included in that deal.
Well, and that's a key point there. It's not like a team option where you have to decide before the summer. You can decide right up until the moment you need it. He'll be on the roster probably right up until the moment they need that space. And I think the reason I said no is mostly financial. Like, I think Daryl will look to reinvest that $8 million somewhere else. But I also think there's been a lot of pushback on Paul Reed lately because he struggled mightily against the Knicks. The team struggled, obviously, when he was on the floor. They struggled on glass. They struggled protecting the rim. I think $8 million for Paul Reed's a fair number. I think he is a viable backup center, a context-dependent and matchup-dependent backup center, but still an option. I think there are certainly playoff series. We've seen it 2 out of 3 years. I thought he held himself decently well in the playoffs. This year he did not. Like I said, I think it's context-dependent, and I think it's matchup-dependent, but I think he can be a backup center in a rotation, and I think $8 million is a backup center salary. Like I think a lot of people are going to be stunned when they start seeing what marginal starters go for. Like, you're talking $15 to $20 million easily for a starter in today's market. $8 million is clearly slotted in the backup. I'm not saying Paul Reed should go because I don't think he can be a backup center. I do think he can be a backup center. I'm not even saying that $8 million is too much for a backup center. It's just with where they are, I think Daryl will look to reinvest that elsewhere. With that being non-guaranteed now, I think he will use that opportunity.
Here's the other thing, and I know we've talked about this at points this year. I think Paul was the guy who was maybe more than anybody else on the roster impacted by James Harden leaving.
Yes.
Because I think in those lineups that they played with James, not only was James able to spoon feed him looks and essentially just turn Paul into what he's good at, which is a pure rim-to-rim runner, screen roll, finish at the basket, none of this self-creation, very little spacing the floor, very little jump shooting. And give him credit, like as a mid-range jump shooter, he didn't have a bad year. There were definitely moments where Paul looked okay there, but that's not generally where you want your offense to be, is playing through Paul Reed jump shots or Paul Reed trying to dribble 3 or 4 times to beat somebody off the bounce. And then on the other side of the floor, they used Paul this year rather than, and some of this is not about him as much as the roster, but with James here, they tried to play a lot of that 1 through 5 switching. That's the style that James, I think, is most comfortable in. And Paul is really built to play in that style of defense. And what Nick Nurse did is try to keep the continuity between, okay, we're a drop team because Joel Embiid is a drop big against pick and rolls. And that's how we should play in general. And tried to get Paul to play in that style of defense. And I think clearly showed Paul's limitations as a drop defender. Like he doesn't have Joel's size. He doesn't have his instincts. He doesn't even really have his athleticism or vertical pop. Like there are times as a rebounder he does. Defensively, he does not have the same kind of maneuverability. And he also doesn't have the second jump ability where when he's getting out to contest something, Paul can play good defense. Rarely is he going to get the rebound after that. It's sort of an either or thing for Paul. And so I think they could get more out of him than they did this past year if they were a little more flexible with how they run their schemes and saying, okay, if Paul's in the game, we're playing differently. But it does not seem like Nick Nurse wants to play that way. So to me, I would guess, based on the money he's making, which to Derek's point, I do think is a fair-ish number for him, I think they'll probably roll the dice on somebody else that they believe is a better fit to just have that continuity from Joel to make up a name, whether it's Andre Drummond, whether it's anybody else. Yeah. You play a similar style all the time, that big is better equipped to play.
Yeah, I think that was a very important point. He is a switch defender, a switch center, not a drop center. Not only because of Nick Nurse, but I think also because of the teammates around him. A lot of the perimeter guys, you don't want fighting, you don't want switching. They're not really capable of holding up in that kind of a scheme. Yeah. And I think that hurt him a little bit too, which all goes back to the problem wasn't necessarily so much Paul. It was that you didn't have another option to play in a matchup like against the Knicks where you need more of a big-bodied traditional center. We've talked about that ad nauseum where Drummond could have been coming back. I think that would have been important. But that doesn't mean Paul can't be part of a rotation. It just means you need another center alongside of him. But more to the point, $8 million is money Daryl would love to have, and I'm sure that's probably weighing on his mind.
Do you feel like he's more, because a lot of people in the chat are talking about him being more of a power forward because of some of those limitations?
If you can't shoot and dribble, you're not a power forward.
Fair.
Right, like Naz Reid, for example, part of the reason you can play him in two big lineups is that he can shoot the ball. Mm-hmm. And frankly, is a better guy attacking off the dribble and playing like that too. Like that's an example of a guy who's a big that you can play minutes at center. But if you need to, you could play him almost exclusively as a power forward if you really wanted to. Paul is not that type of guy. If he ever becomes a reliable shooter, sure. But I just, between the mechanics and
takes 4.5 years to get the jumper off.
I was going to say, they're loading up the trebuchets.
Yeah. They did encourage him to shoot a little bit more, though, this season.
Yeah, but he doesn't space the floor.
No, he doesn't.
Nobody guards
But they encouraged him to do it.
That's great.
He did it.
They can encourage him on another contract.
That's very true. Listen.
No,
it's not going to make or break, of course, but this is the discussion that you get, folks. This is what makes it fun, where the back and forth is what it is about the roster construction. But yeah, yes, they can absolutely spend the money elsewhere. Yeah. What does that look like? Who is that type of player? What is available, whether it's trade or in the free agency? What does that player look like? I don't know. And that's why I just simply went with the yes part of him coming back for right now, because I don't have an answer for who that might be.
Yeah. No, Daryl, I think Daryl, first of all, I think there's a possibility Paul comes back, right? Like if they go out, maybe they make their one big splash. Right now, basically the Sixers, after incomplete roster charges, just the numbers portion of it, would have about $65 million in cap space if that's what they could max out with. That's waiving B-ball Paul. That's getting rid of all of their cap hold. Yada, yada, yada. Let's say Paul George eats up 49 of that. They don't have another use for the next 15. Maybe then you see Paul Reed come back. So I think he's going to talk him up right now because there's a chance he could come back. And also there's a chance he could be traded. And one of the benefits of a non-guaranteed contract, you could trade him at there's like a team option on a contract, then you have to guarantee that next year in order to trade him. With a non-guaranteed, it's not the case. So they could theoretically trade him at the draft. So I think there's also a trade value aspect to talking that player up, but also it's probably mostly just like, hey, there's a chance he's coming back, so of course I'm going to talk him up.
Fair enough.
Which is why Daryl Morey is a liar, but I don't begrudge him for it because he should lie. It's a part of being a good GM.
Here we go.
Look, Harden just handed that right to us on a platter. We're going to use it every now and then.
That is fair. But you look, the red flag there for Paul Reed also is at the deadline, as Kyle reported and Derek, the Andre Drummond thing was real, and that may not have been as big as it was if Paul Reed was playing better by the deadline.
Or frankly, if Paul Reed was like 2 inches taller.
Sure, yeah, and especially with Embiid going down, you needed that help, that security there going forward. Bit of a red flag there for Paul Reed, but that's how it's going to go. So we're going to look at the rest of them shortly here to get through everybody else, because there are so many players to discuss. We see your Reed comments in there. If only he was like Nas Reed, things would be a little bit different. That said,
yes, indeed.
we gotta take a little kickback right now.
Yeah, we got to talk. Listen, you are coming to the official beverage person of PHLY, I think.
I've got one this time.
Look at that.
Derek came prepared.
I can't rely on anyone else.
I got
so
my
I brought it
strawberry
myself.
vanilla on set today. You know, you guys know I love talking about
Got
Olipop.
the fridge behind us.
We do.
Loaded if we need one.
Olipop gang here today. Guys, Olipop is a new kind of soda with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of fiber per can. Available online and in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including the most recent launch at all Wawa stores. You can scoop a classic root beer or the wonderful strawberry vanilla flavor that I have right here at a Wawa near you. Said it yesterday. I'll be saying it quite often. It's the off season now, and now I can think more about the choices I make in my day-to-day life. Do I go to the gym? Do I need to eat this thing? How am I thinking about my calories more, my intake, my outtake? Guys, Olipop allows me to get exactly what I want from soda without worrying what it's doing to my body, without counting the calories, thinking about the sugar, any of that stuff, because I know the facts about Olipop. No added sugar, and their vintage cola, just as one example, has 2 grams of sugar compared to a regular Coca-Cola that has 39 grams of sugar. So you get the great taste that you want, the refreshing feeling of drinking a soda without all the downsides of drinking regular soda. So Olipop also has plenty of classic flavors. You saw Derek over there had an orange squeeze. We also have vintage cola, classic root beer, classic grape, which I was drinking yesterday, strawberry vanilla, cream soda, cherry cola. Devon had the good luck ginger ales, watermelon lime. We got all kinds of stuff around here. And if you want to get in on Olipop too, use the code PHLY20 for 20% off of your next Olipop order. Discount only applies to one-time orders and not to subscriptions. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com and on Amazon, and it's available in almost 30,000 retailers, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and Go Puff. Derek is so happy about Olipop. He's just coughing in a fit of joy over there.
It is not a Rite Aid day, but I could do that ad read if it were.
So check out some Olipop today. I turned on some other Sixers beat writers to Olipop too. I know colleague Paul Hudrick stopped by Target the other day, had a strawberry vanilla, gave it a solid review. So just throwing that out there. I'm not steering people wrong. Get behind it, everybody. Also want to tell you about another good friend of ours, another summertime beverage when you're out in the hot weather, you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you're thinking, man, I really want to talk trash about the Nuggets, but their series isn't over yet. When you need to choose chill, when you need to chill out, decompress, slow down, and then have a nice, refreshing beverage to go with it, you can choose chill by reaching for an ice cold Coors Light, because with Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice cold beer. When the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans, that means they have turned the perfect temperature for choosing chill. You guys know I have a little bit of I won't say beef. I'm not going to put it in the Kendrick and Drake category quite yet. Certainly a little bit of a internet rivalry with Denver Nuggets fans. And there are plenty of times over the last few days where could have been making some retweets, could have been bringing them up on the show and having a little bit of fun at their expense after they tried to invade my mentions many times over the last 3 months. But listen, everybody, I chose chill, and so can you. With a Coors Light that's cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged for a smooth finish, it is mountain cold refreshment. No matter what those people from the state of Colorado, outside of beautiful Golden, Colorado, think of the Sixers and Joel Embiid. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Fachi said on the good ship, Olipop. Good stuff. You got a lot of people in there, man. Turning it on to the Olipop.
Listen, because I've said it. I've been honest. There are some flavors that are not my favorite. Not everything is for everyone, but I think it is a soda, a drink worth trying. There's a little something for everyone. As I said, I don't want to get the Skittles trademark infringement, but there's a whole rainbow of flavors. So just try them out and see what hits for you.
And also, I think a lot of people are conscious of maybe drinking too many calories.
Absolutely.
This is much lower calorie.
Derek actually throughout this season is
all the time.
He comes
Don't
in with
drink
some
calories. Absolutely.
There you go. From the man, the numbers man himself.
Well, as someone who has legitimately spent years, like I went from really big to pretty small to now a little bigger than I'd like to be. But as someone who has sort of watched that over the last 5 years, one of the easiest ways to try to cut back on calories is not drinking calories. And this is a much better option, and it tastes better than a lot of diets do. It really does.
So there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, we got a lot to get
We're going
into.
to trim some fat off the Sixers.
Let's trim some fat. Let's see where we go here. Bree, you might as well get that graphic ready and start off with some of these folks that we are discussing. All right. Let's begin.
The massive graphic.
Look at that. Where do we begin? How about we begin with the very first one?
Devon and I nearly in lockstep.
Look at that. Look at that. All right, let's go. Start off with De'Anthony Melton, since he's the first one there on the board. De'Anthony Melton, guys, free agent, dealt with a lot of the back issues this season that kept him out of the lineup. We saw him for one game in the postseason. And as a result, that back thing is really problematic. He spoke to the media before, right in the middle of the playoffs when they came back from New York and discussing how he felt good at the moment, felt like he was good to go. It's been a problem. It's been a pain. And you know what? Having to deal with it, one day feeling good, one day not feeling so great. And he was available, suited up for those home games, but we never, Derek, saw him on the floor. And with that, the numbers that you would talk about when the season was underway and that 5-man starting group was at the top of the NBA with their net rating and how good they were, he was a big part of it.
He was a part of it, but let's be honest, like an Embiid Maxey 5-man group is probably going to be really good. That being said, I do think his defense is something that we saw throughout the year and throughout the playoffs, especially. You need that two-way play. Like so many of the Sixers players can contribute in one way or sometimes legitimately just one skill or sometimes one side of the ball. He gave you shooting. He gave you a little secondary ball handling. He gave you some defensive versatility. None of us necessarily know what you can expect from him, but I think anyone who would say, yes, I think you should try to bring him back is doing that because you think you're going to get him on a cheap one-year deal and on a team desperate to build depth. Take a swing, see if you can have a prove-it year, benefit from that, and he can get his next contract. It's not so much like I believe that he will be healthy next year. It's just he might be so cheap because of the back that there's very little risk in doing so.
And I think you also have to be clear-headed about the last 2 years of Melton to bring him back, regardless of what the price is. Like, I think especially this past season, I can't speak for you guys, but I think most people would have come in saying, yeah, if he's not a starter, he's one of their most important players, right? Like he'll be 6th man, 7th, whatever you want to slot him into, he was going to be an essential piece. Now, having dealt with back issues now it was worse this past season, but this is now 2 years in a row where he's had some kind of back problem. You have to go into it as, yeah, he's kind of a lottery ticket type player. And that's why, for me, he's a yes, because that's the only type of contract I would give him. As much as I love De'Anthony's skill set and what he brings to the table, I'm not paying, over market to keep him or even close to over market. So I think all of us would agree that this is very much about, I think he's going to be on a prove-it deal. Yeah. And I think that if he's healthy, which is a big if, he will far exceed the value of whatever his contract will be.
Yeah, and if you're asking me the probability of that if he will be healthy, no, it's not probable. But that's why we're all talking about a low contract on a prove-it deal.
And the reason why I brought up the numbers of that 5-man unit to start things off with the guys is because had he played all season, if he was healthy enough and this team advances in the second round, maybe even gets a little further, that just looks good for him, regardless of who he's playing with, because he was a big part of that 5-man unit. So, yes, for us, cheap deal, works out for the 76ers and him. He feels comfortable here. Maybe he feels comfortable because also with the medical staff, knowing that they have dealt with him and trying to get back on the floor. It all works out for everybody. De'Anthony Melton back for the Philadelphia 76ers. He made about $8 million last year, right?
Yeah.
So how much would you, if you had to guess? If you
he
just had to
might
guess.
legitimately be looking at like minimum territory.
Yeah, I was going to say, he
Right.
could actually be on a minimum.
He hasn't really played since January. Like, that's going to be tough to get a real contract from.
See, that's why you come here, folks. You get the answers.
I could be wrong.
Guys.
There could be someone who looks at his production year over year and says, all right, let's give him a more significant part.
And I would say, like, if you look at Detroit, or I would honestly, San Antonio might be an interesting spot for him, where they have a ton of cap space. Maybe they don't end up using it. Nobody really wants to go there. That's a big time free agent. Maybe they end up with some spare money and they're like, hey, we'll pay you around that $8 million on a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
and then you just upgrade exactly. Yeah. No real risk for them.
There's too much. There's that $8 million. It would be one thing if the Sixers were an over the cap team and using bird rights to bring him back. Then you could say, all right, we'll match that $8 million 1-year deal on approve it. With the Sixers case, because they're trying to clear cap space to sign a free agent, no, if it's going to cost $8 million, then no, I don't think he will be back, and I don't think he should be back.
Dave Doer said requires deep discount. Coach Low Ricketts, Melton is not an old fart. He is young and can probably recover from his back injury.
He's certainly young enough to recover from an injury. Backs scare me.
They're very tricky.
Backs don't really care about age a lot of times.
All right, who's next on the
old roster?
The hit list, but yeah,
we'll call it go. We go next.
All right, another one we had full agreement on.
Nic Batum. Nic Batum. You spoke to him in the locker room after the game, and Joel had to bum rush the the media gathering to let him know that he was coming back.
So there are two major roadblocks here. One, he has to actually play in the NBA next year, which I don't think is a foregone conclusion. Like, as much as Joel was advocating for it, and frankly, like, I shared this in the story I wrote end of last week at allphly.com for diehards only, if you haven't signed up already, by the way. Nico talked at length about enjoying his time in Philadelphia, and that, you know, it's not a place that everybody can succeed in, but that he appreciated. He always knew if he was getting booed or the team was getting booed, whatever was happening, he felt like it was coming from, oh yeah, we're not playing well. This is not for no reason, and got behind him when they deserved it, or he deserved it individually. And so it seemed like he took to this place quite a bit, and certainly enjoyed playing with Joel. Those two had a close relationship. But if he's going to retire, he's going to retire. There's nothing you can really do about that. The other side of it is, will he get some more money? He's coming off of a pretty sizable deal, and he has made quite a bit of money throughout his career. So it's not a guy who's like, oh, I got to get this one last huge, I shouldn't say huge, one last big payday, like in the PJ Tucker type category. So it will be, I'd say it'll be tougher to keep him financially than Melton for sure. But I think it will help all the things I just laid out, including that tight relationship with Joel. If he wants to come back again, then I think all those will loom pretty heavily.
He does have a pretty big cap hold. I actually don't have that right in front of me, but coming off of an $11 million contract, we're talking mid-teens kind of cap hold. So if the Sixers want to do something in free agency, they would have to renounce him. So that will complicate things. At that point, you have to bring him back either with cap space or an exception. The room mid-level exception is right around $8 million. Whether or not the Sixers will use that on one of the people that they renounce the rights to, or an external free agent, we will see. That makes it a little bit more difficult. But I just feel like Nico's at a point where if he is going to play in the NBA, it feels like he would want to play with the Sixers, with Embiid, with a chance to compete. Like, that would be the reason why he's coming back, not just to play basketball. So I think that gives the Sixers the leg up.
I don't see him taking like a balloon deal from the Spurs or Pistons or whoever.
And that's why I think if he does play, like I said, it might be a battle against play or not play more so than other teams. But I think the Sixers would be a good spot if he does want to contend one more time.
Yep. Don't have a lot to add. Just a nice fit, nice piece with the current stars that they have.
We're talking very little money here. We're not talking a significant contract.
Right. Yeah. So just a nice piece, an extra piece to have there that plays winning basketball. Showed you some really good stuff in the time that was here. And even the way he recovered and got back with that hamstring injury that he dealt with there for a time. And we thought he couldn't move. I remember doing the post game, and the guys, we were just like, wow, he just simply cannot move. But he came back. He had those big games, one against Miami, game 6 here in Philadelphia against New York. he does stuff that helps you win, won't cost you a lot. Perfectly fine with him having a roster spot. Let's move on to the next big name, and that would be one Buddy Hield. All in agreement here?
Wow.
No.
I don't think there's a 0% chance, but it has to be at a very low price. And it has to be if you've struck out on other options. I'm really thinking more something along the lines of with that room mid-level exception. There might be a contract I'm not completely against, depending on the other options out there. I am interested in seeing a full year with Buddy and Joel, whether or not he can recapture some of what he did in Game 6. I'm just not sure I'm ready to bank on that, which is why I went no.
Yeah. I think Daryl, again, we talked about this on Monday, but I think Daryl's comments were pretty revealing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see the roster get changed enough that the problems that they ran into with Buddy are all of a sudden going to change. And I don't think that's necessarily an indictment of Buddy. Like, I agree with Daryl on that, but I think he'll have a pretty good market. I think he's still in the age bracket where he cares about maximizing earnings to some degree. Like, I'm not saying that he's necessarily going to go anywhere that throws the most money at him, but I think he's still probably cognizant of that versus a guy who's at the end of his career trying to ring chase and things of that nature. So if he was a better two-way guy, it'd be more of a priority for me. And I do think he deserves a little bit of credit for the effort that he showed on defense.
And
But
I think he just flat out held up better than I was expecting defensively.
I think given his reputation and some of the issues he's had over his career, was better there than I expected. But I don't think that really made a difference with Nick Nurse. So,
do you think a team gives him more than the room mid-level? Do you think he still commands that?
How much is that again?
I could see him getting
$8 million.
The problem with the
10-ish.
problem with the room is you can only use it for up to 2 years in length. That's really limiting when you add in the $8 million starting point.
I could see him getting like 3 for $30 or something like that.
That's, I mean, it's, in all honesty, that's part of the reason why I said no here. Like I said, there is a scenario where the Sixers renounce everyone, have about $15 million left after going after their big name, whether that's Paul George. We don't need to go over the list. So maybe if you really believe in Buddy, you can use the last remainder of that cap space and then eventually use a room mid-level on someone else. I'm just not sure I believe in Buddy right now enough to use that on a long-term deal.
I looked at him and I did want to. I wish he had more time with Embiid so we can really get a good chance to see it.
100%.
And the intrigue of that in bringing him
also
back
with
was
a Joel that could move more to do the dribble handoff.
In all honesty, like even before the playoffs, I think after Embiid came back, about 60% of Buddy's minutes were with Joel on the bench, which shocked me and I think was a little bit of a mistake. I would have liked to have seen those two develop some chemistry because what we saw in Game 6. It's not even like Buddy was really doing much in terms of moving off ball or coming off screens or coming off DHOs. It's just when they trap, he's actually going to make them pay. You can put him in the corner, and when you swing that ball around, he's going to, bury the shot. It would have been just great to see a little more because this is like I said, you have one big name, one maybe middle name in terms of that 15 or so million after signing that big name. You have to believe in Buddy Hield a lot to use that last bit of flexibility. And you just didn't see enough over the last couple of weeks. But it would have been great to see him, like I said, next to Embiid more.
Yep, a full training camp and an opportunity to get things started there, see him go through the preseason and begin Game 1 with the 76ers, Embiid, and everyone else. I would have liked to have seen it, but it just may cost too much for that. And as we talk about so many times, you need shooters around Joel Embiid. You also need shooters around Tyrese Maxey. And that guy, as we saw in that Game 6, we didn't see it a lot during his time when Embiid came back. But even that little glimpse of those first few games that we had where that chemistry was there with Paul Reed, ironically enough, as the playmaker and finding Paul Reed for some easy buckets there on that as that role man. I would like to see Buddy Hield back, but I just know it's going to cost too much. And that's why in our exercise here, I just simply went with no. I think it's going to cost too much. You're going to have to find that shooter elsewhere and maybe at a little cheaper price, plus in the mold of whoever that other player may be when we talk about some of those bigger names that they sign on for. As before we get to some of the other names that we talk about, and a lot of them got to get cut. It's the summer. Got to get your beach bodies ready. Are you ready to soak up the summer vibes and unveil your ultimate beach body. Well, you are in luck because our friends over at Manscaped have you covered from head to toe with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, the ultimate all-in-one grooming kit to have you looking and feeling your best in the summer sun. Trust Manscaped and unlock the confidence you need to turn those heads this season. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with code PHLY. Let's make the summer your smoothest one yet. Embrace your summer buy goals with the all-inclusive Performance Package 5.0. It's perfect for those who are aiming for that crisp, clean, and confident look. You have the updated Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Groin and Body Hair Trimmer. Get a summer makeover. They'll take care of that for you with this particular item. It's waterproof, designed for splashy pool parties and beach hangouts. That's your choice. You do what you want there if you want to take it out to the water. Keep your ears, nose tidy as your hedges next door with the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer. Those pesky hairs. How about this? Be gone. Also, the Magic Mat, disposable shaving mats. Got your back and the front and everything else that needs grooming. It's like having a magician in your bathroom where you don't have a lot of cleanup there.
Presto!
You just be gone. The Magic Mat, all done. Surprise, your purchase comes with free boxers 2.0. Midnight Bravo.
Abracadabra.
Comfort and style that fits like a dream. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code PHLY at manscaped.com. That is 20% off plus free shipping with the code PHLY at manscaped.com because the summer is here to stay. So trust Manscaped to keep your pubes at bay.
We also want to make sure we tell you about Game Time because the Phillies are playing fantastic ball right now, and you'll want to get down to the bank.
Best team in baseball right now.
But they're keeping the grass trimmed.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
Buying
are.
tickets, do you think they're... No, they wouldn't be using that. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. With Game Time, you get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set, with tickets sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right.
I was trying to think of some more
clever
magician ad libs. I couldn't just like, now you see it, now you don't, you know.
Martian Lynch says, Midnight Bravo. It's nasty work. Well, that's why you got the LED headlights there, right there, my man. All right, let's get back to the list as we roll along here, talking about the Sixers stay or go. Next up, we do have Kyle Lowry, folks. Stay, go. Derek and I went with stay.
Looks like I am the lone dissenter.
Kyle says no. Let's begin there. Why no to the Kyle Lowry?
He's 1,000 fucking years old. It's really the only thing. So
my only reason is I think you might be able to get him on a minimum contract, and that won't eat into your cap space in any way.
Yeah, I just so the further we got into that playoff run, the more that I felt the whole, oh yeah, Nurse and Lowry have been together for too long.
I agree with that. My only concern is Nurse might overplay him.
And so,
but he had, in this sense, he had no choice with Melton.
Kind of,
but the Hield.
By the end of that series, it was scary.
And he made the change.
Kyle Lowry.
He did get him off the floor and gave others. All right, go ahead.
So, listen, I think in a consistent, specialized role that Kyle Lowry can still be a valuable piece of the team, right? Like I think we all saw He had some big shots early in the series. The game intelligence is still there. I just think that if you put him on this team, Nick Nurse is going to play him 20 to 25 minutes every single night.
No.
And you just cannot do it. And as much as we want to say, oh, Nick Nurse isn't Doc Rivers and blah, 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 part of the reason that I didn't blame Doc entirely for all the stupid playing veteran big men is like, well, what do you expect when you keep DeAndre Jordan on a roster with Doc Rivers? He's going to play that guy. And so Daryl, in my mind, has to draw the line and say, I'm not giving you that option. You do not have the choice to play old ass Kyle Lowry. And I say that respectfully, Kyle, you're only a few years older than I am, frankly. But I'm not being asked to suit up for an NBA team every single night. So it's not that I don't like Lowry. Sure. It's not even that, like, if he returns, I can absolutely see the vision for why. He's going to be cheap. He's a competitor. Like, the leadership intangibles are good. I just don't want to go into next season with Lowry and Nurse is like, oh, well, that's my guy, and I'm going to keep playing him. And we're going to get to January, and Kyle Lowry's going to be one of the highest minute guys on the team. And we're all sitting here like, well, why aren't they playing this guy and this guy? And it's like, well, because the coach loves Kyle Lowry, and that's going to be part of it. So that's part of the massive part of the calculus for me.
No, if he comes back, it has to be 10 to 15 minutes per game max.
Yeah.
That's my condition.
Yeah, and that's my thing. I just think he had to play him. Kyle, you're not wrong in saying, and
I'm not saying you guys are wrong for saying you want him back. Like, I get all the reasons to bring him back. Yeah. I'm very leery, having gone through the last 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was that he was on the team, that it'll go down a path where it was sort of like it was in Miami, right? Like, here's the other thing. Lowry also has to be willing to play a small role. And I think this is not a diss to him at all. He's a very prideful guy who still wants to play. He doesn't want to be Mr. Rah-Rah waving towels on the sideline, right? He wants to be in the action. And so if he's not happy with that, that's part of the calculus and what have you as well.
Yes. So I just thought that playing at home, felt comfortable here, knows the coach, had decent chemistry with the guys on the floor. When we talk about Tyrese Maxey playing off ball a little bit, one of the things that Derek talked about also during the series was you need to see more Lowry minutes with Maxey on the floor when Embiid was off, so you can, have Maxey scoring the basketball a little bit. Thought there was some good stuff there. And I don't know. I just think that he would understand his role. And even though Nick Nurse knows that he has that crutch of leaning on, I can lean on Kyle Lowry whenever I want to, there may be other people on the roster where he doesn't have to play that number of minutes. Now, if Melton comes back and they both are on this roster and Melton goes down again, then maybe those minutes will go up. Mm-hmm. And then that's something that Nick Nurse is going to have to figure out and navigate through in that moment. But I think there's more pluses to it than the minuses. And Nick Nurse also would have to look himself in the mirror and understand that he can't play him those 25 to 30 minutes.
We're 45 minutes into this, and we've done 4 players.
Well, some of these guys will be easy to just like
roll through.
Yeah,
we can roll through. So
who's next?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. But
again, next one, I don't even know if we have to talk about.
But we've done it all season.
Wow.
But we need to allocate some time here.
We got to give our Arriva Dare sheet to Tobias
Harris. Stay or go.
Crumble man.
When it's official and he's somewhere else, we'll all bring in crumble cookies and we'll have a toast.
Yeah. He's out.
We'll support his small business.
He's out. What's the chances?
I think he's only a part owner in one of the locations, isn't he?
Yeah,
so
I think
we have to go to that specific location.
I don't remember which one that was either.
Ardmore,
somewhere in that area, near Ardmore, Villanova, somewhere around there. I don't know. He's not back.
Clearly not a Philly guy,
He's not back. He's not back. And
can you imagine if
I'm kidding.
If one of us just put up like a yes just to troll people, the chat would be losing their mind. People do not want to buy us back on a minimum contract, much less a contract he would actually get.
So Bree is
Mikey
fantastic.
Faze said, "Where is the GTFO button?"
Well, Bree put it up perfectly on the poll here for Tobias Harris. Stay, go. Is this really a question? So, I think we all understand that it's time for him to go. And he feels the same way, quite honestly, that he knows the time has run out. 5.5 seasons here, did not go well. And as it stands, as we saw it, final game, 0 points, my man. So there you go. What a way to go
We
out.
keep going through and saying, "Oh, at the right price, at the right price."
No.
I would not. I'm not taking him back for any amount of money, and that's not because he's not worth the minimum. It's because everybody needs to move on.
Yeah. Where's Tobias Harris in
included.
the chat? Where is he? Nah, I guess he shared his final change in that super chat that he gave us and said, "Thanks for the $180 million on the way."
By the way,
out.
I know a lot of people brought this up before Daryl's press conference. That one tweet he sent in front of the Crumble Cookie store
still not a great one.
that did not age. It didn't age well at the moment, let alone afterwards. So
A friend of mine retweeted the what was that, the thing at the arena last summer for the Fanatics brand, where he said that, well, yeah, the trade stuff is out there, the rumors, but where are you going to find somebody 6'8", can guard 1 through 4, can also shoot the ball at 37% and put the ball on the floor and do all these things? Would have been nice in the game 6.
Yeah.
Would have been.
Nice guy. I hope to never see him again, because that's not true. I will certainly talk to Tobias when he's back in town. But
what's his ovation?
Hope
his
to
first
not
game
see him
back?
in the Sixers locker room.
What's his ovation? His first game back.
I mean,
Introducing the starting lineup.
I don't think there's an ovation.
Yeah. No, I think there's still a lot of
he's getting booed.
animosity.
He's getting booed. Let's move on. Tobias is out. Everybody agrees. We move on. All right, next one. KJ Martin. I wanted KJ Martin in the Sixers uniform at the beginning of the season because I was just curious of the Houston days, what he did there. Could that translate to a better basketball team? And he had moments. And he was probably playing ahead of Ricky Council at that time that Nick Nurse had him, because he was more front court, more player than Ricky was. And I was okay with that, even though I still wanted some Ricky Council minutes. I think we saw enough.
Yeah. I'm just going to boil this real simple. If you can't shoot, you can't play on the team.
Fair enough.
Next player.
And frankly, if they're going to try to develop Ricky, which I think they should, KJ is in some ways in the way. Like he was,
and Ricky has a more projectable jump shot, which I can't believe I'm saying, because when I scouted him in college, he had one of the worst jumpers I've ever seen. I think the way I described it was he was throwing the ball the general direction of the rim. It's gotten a lot better, and I want to see if he can continue to improve that. He even, when he was on he did the show with us, he's like, "Man, I saw film." I'm like, why didn't you guys tell me about this earlier? So he's gone out, he's put in the work, he's repaired it a little bit. Now let's see if we can turn that into an actual in-game weapon.
Yeah, I'm not completely opposed to KJ coming back.
No,
just because they need athleticism. So
you don't need 2 roster spots on. If it's a minimum, like, am I gonna?
That's what
holler?
I mean.
No.
Yeah, but that's basically.
He's not a priority either.
No,
100%.
not at all. All right, let's move on to the next one. We go to Jeff Dowtin Jr.
He's a 4A baseball player. Not a priority to bring back. Again, if it happens and he's on a minimum, whatever, fine, but just not a priority.
Nah. Yeah.
Derek summed it up.
Okay, Tom.
That's what I'm saying. Is like some of these we're just gonna okay.
All right.
Goodbye.
All right. Thanks, Jeff Dowtin. Appreciate it. Let's move on to a much bigger name here. We go with Kelly Oubre Jr., folks. Before Derek and Kyle. Derek says no. Kyle and I say yes. Folks, Kelly Oubre Jr. Have at it in the chat. Derek, who was that? Remember 4 for 80? Wasn't that the number that
Phil.
we got?
That's Phil.
That was Phil?
Yeah.
All right. Phil W., it's your time to shine, my man. Kelly
so here's the only reason I said no. I would actually look to bring Kelly back. My concern is when
very convenient. He's in front of the chat, and now he's saying he's going to bring
There's a
back.
reason we're doing a podcast and not just putting up a graphic so we can discuss it. Asshole. I would look to bring Kelly back. My concern is I think the Sixers are going to run through their cap space, look to bring him back on the 2-year, like I said, the 2-year room mid-level exception that starts at $8 million. And I just think somebody else is going to outbid them for that. I don't think that's going to be enough to get it done. I think some team is going to use either their full mid-level or a portion of it for a longer-term deal. Like I said, the real limiting factor isn't just the $8 million starting point. It's the 2 years maximum length. I think these Sixers will just get outbid. I think he played too well at the end of the season to fit into what the Sixers will have after they use up their cap space.
Aaron says $8 million, not at $12 million. Kyle.
And I will, 2 years, $8 million starting point, I'll take it. And I am not the Kelly Oubre guy, but I will take that.
Option.
He's a good enough fit. There's three things I really value. Decision-making, reliable shooting, and defensive versatility. He checks one of those three boxes. And that is enough for me for an $8 million starting point. Sure, no questions asked.
Okay, so I'm just more dubious on the prospect of Kelly getting a good deal from the NBA this season, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't know that 1 year as a minimum guy is going to dispel what NBA teams felt about him coming into the season. And I think when you combine the streaky shooting, when you combine the very strange incidents off the floor between the bike incident, the crashing a Lamborghini immediately after, was that game 2?
Yep.
And not trying to make light of, obviously, car accidents, whatever, but just like things tend to happen with Kelly, and the periods of the season where he did in some ways live up to his prior reputation, I think it's going to lag behind a little bit, and teams are going to say, okay, you had one good year, and it was a good year. We all sat here and said, Kelly, I said to Kelly myself, I said, you proved me wrong, and what I thought about you in a lot of ways. Like him and I had those conversations in the locker room, and I'm sure there are plenty of other people who feel the same way. I'm not sure that the NBA at large feels that way. And so I don't feel the same fear of somebody using like the full mid-level on Kelly. And I certainly don't think he's getting the 4 for 80 or whatever.
No, that's off.
And I know you're not saying that. I'm saying
I saw
the
1
chat
4 for 60 in the chat.
That's too much.
He's gonna get
I don't think he's going to get that.
Neither
but like
do
I could see like a 330 type thing, not the full mid-level.
So that I agree with, and that's when they get into real trouble. And it's like, okay, that's a tough decision when you factor in how little space they'll have otherwise if they get a max guy. And so I understand your position. I could be wrong. I don't believe he'll end up getting the full mid-level. And so then it becomes, what's the order of operations for everything else? Who do you end up getting? How does that happen? And the core of this is, on top of that, I just think he was good. And I think he was good in the role they needed him this year. I think having talked to him right after the season ended, I thought he was very clear-eyed on what he needs to get better at and the things he needs to work on in the summer. I thought he showed a lot of love for Nick Nurse and the program. And so it's a situation where he wants to be here if he can. Another wrinkle, which it came up in the chat briefly, Kelly at the moment is representing himself. He is being advised by, I believe, his trainer at the moment, which says to me, he's not going to be as prepared to hit the market as a guy who's got full-time representation.
There's also time for him to hire full-time representation.
Sure. Will he is another story. So there are a lot of factors there, but mostly I think he's the type of player that they need. They need either young or in prime age athletes who can defend, who can offer something on offense. He might end up being a little more expensive than you want, but I think he's, as long as he's not getting overpaid, I think he's an easy bring back. And that's really the thing here.
I think part of it is context dependent. Like if you get someone like Jimmy as your third star, then I think you need more shooting at the other forward spot. So that's part of the reason why. But basically, I think if you want to guarantee Kelly coming back, you have to prioritize him with the rest of that cap space. And like I said, I don't think that the league has bought into Kelly per se. Like I don't expect that 480 or 460 or anything like that. I don't think that's on the table. But I think he showed enough defensively and enough with a buy-in where I could see a team, like I said, 330. And if the Sixers don't prioritize him right from the jump and try to bring him back with that room mid-level, which is only up to 2 years, I think that could be a hindrance.
And his agent is in the chat.
Phil W. He's here, y'all. Kelly agent.
He played good. He played good enough for me to say he comes back. I thought and factored in the things that Kyle just talked about, the other negative stuff, the off the floor issues, the still spaced out moments on the floor from time to time with the silly fouls from Kelly Oubre, and the fact that it was just a one year sample size of him not acting like he was playing in Charlotte. And for that reason, that's why I think the number might be a little bit lower than what we're discussing. And with that, that's why I'm looking at bringing him back for a 2-year deal. And I don't know how it works with maybe a third year with the option and how much that affects everything. But I was looking at more of a 2-year, bring him back. And he seemed like he liked it here, as Kyle talked about, and the comfortability not playing for a bad organization. And I thought that he might want to stay here. So Kelly Oubre, yes. And then in the votes, we had 109 votes. 95% say come back, 4 say go, and his agent is in the chat. So we thank Phil for checking in.
Look, if he gets 480, Phil, he owes you a cut. He absolutely owes you a cut.
At least owes you a nice dinner
or a jersey or something. Let's go to the next one. And we moved to campaign. Also, Kyle and I agree. Stay. Derek says no. Derek, why?
Again, if you can bring him back on like a minimum, sure.
Are you talking 1 year, or would you give him
2-year, man? That's fine. I don't care. Minimum's minimum. The only reason
but people
I would
also, even though they know the numbers, people also care about the years. At least fan base. That's all.
Yeah.
So pull them into it.
So the only reason I would not prioritize him, and really when you start talking about how limited ways the Sixers have to bring players back, like I said, cap space or that room mid-level, and that's pretty much it. I'm not going to prioritize him just because of that defensive fit. If your focal point on the perimeter was somewhat other than Tyrese Maxey and at 6'2", then I might prioritize bringing Campaign back. But the fit there, like I said, it's all about priorities right now. You have very few avenues to go out and sign players to anything that's more than the minimum. I can't commit one of those few, like I said, either the $15 million left over after star hunting or the room mid-level. It's hard for me to commit one of those two to a player who is real tough to play next to your, co-franchise guy. That's the only reason. I actually, Cam, probably as much as Kelly, Cam won me over. Like his courage to take those big shots, is never having a fear of the moment. The creativity he had in his passing, I like all of that. It's just I can't play him next to Tyrese Maxey very often, and that's tough. It's tough.
Energy costs nothing, as Eugene Ross says. Now,
it's going to cost something in free agency.
Yeah, exactly. It costs something here in the terms of the minimum deal, but the energy, again, playing in big games again and showing up, especially when his number wasn't called a lot during the stretch down the regular season. And he stepped up and had some pretty good minutes there. So that's where I lean more towards yes.
You have people in chat, Cannoli in chat, saying it's on a 2-year minimum. Then yeah, sure, bring him back. I'm fine with that.
I'm just
100%.
kind of assuming there's not going to, because his limitations are what they are, and I don't think maybe he gets like a little more than the minimum from somebody, but
is that because of what they saw down that playoff stretch?
And look, I think the other thing you would say about Cam, and certainly showed in that series and in the final few months of the season, great locker room guy, like just a super positive dude to be around every single day. Had good relationships with not just like the veterans, but the younger guys. Like we saw it during the Knicks series. He is, offering words of encouragement or advice to the Rickies, the Turks, the Jeff Doughtons, the guys who are not playing at all, and he's involved in that way. And so that's somebody, like, you want guys like that around. To Derek's point, he's not a priority, but because I said no on Lowry, I was not assuming you're just going to get all your guards for the team in free agency otherwise, or that are not currently on the roster. So give me some Campaign and give me the Campaign coffee order. I still haven't tried that yet. I got to get to that at some point this week.
All right, let's keep it rolling. We have a few more to go here on the show. Easy. Let's just do one. But Mo Bamba, Kyle, got to start with you. We all said no, but we start with Kyle. Mo Bamba.
No. I was going to try to do the no Bamba, but yeah.
No
Goodbye,
Bamba.
goodbye, Mo.
Time to go.
It was real.
You
It
needed
was real
rebounding
fun.
help, Derek, in the series against the New York Knicks. Didn't call his number.
No.
Yeah.
Nor should they have.
See you later. Yeah.
Seems like a good guy. That's all I
Gotta
got.
go. All right, final one. Robert Covington. It was a nice story to see Robert Covington come back, but the injury kept him off the floor for the last 3 months of the season. He did not play, really. He got here in February. Did not see him really for March. Good part. No, he got here earlier than February because the trade happened a long time ago. So, like the last 3-4 months.
He did not play in 2024.
So December. Wow.
December 30th, actually.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
Rob, he's always a good dude. Robert Covington's a good guy.
Was helpful when he played.
Great story. Rebuild, turned himself into something. All defense, first team. And
I think his knees might be cooked.
Yeah.
I think is the big problem for him. So.
All right. So
was it the 4 straight months of not playing that gave you that indication?
And issues at previous stops as well. Yeah, that might have swayed me a little bit.
Tibbs again. Strikes, man. Minnesota, Tibbs. All right, let's throw it up there real fast, Bree. The final tally there. One more. The image, just so everybody can see it again. The stare go, where Kyle and I were like-minded on 4 for Kyle, 5 for me, and 3 for Derek. But good discussion here overall, and a lot
Derek
of folks.
says, "Get these bozos off my basketball
I mean, if
team."
I'm being honest, you talked me back into Cam. Like if it's on a minimum, sure, whatever.
Yeah. And if you had to choose Cam or Lowry, you would go Cam?
I just thought Kyle was more likely to get on a minimum, so that's why I went Kyle.
All right, fair.
That was my thought process.
Al, our buddy, the 2-minute warning. What up, Al? I would like to know what's the backup plan if we can't get a star. What would y'all do?
So we're not supposed to answer super chats with "I don't know," right? Because I'm still sort of
say generally.
So
no.
say as of right now, I don't know.
Well, but like I'm not sure yet.
It's early.
It's early.
Yeah,
like
it's
I
early.
sort of treat this a little bit like a final exam. I've got to write my answers down at the end. And until then, I'm not sure because there's landmines every which way you go.
I would also say I find it very unlikely they won't get a star. The important thing is, do they get a star that you actually like? Right? Like they're not going to come out of this offseason completely empty-handed. If they did, Daryl would get his ass canned, right? Like there's something is going to happen. It's just a matter of what is the price to make it happen, and do you like the player that ends up coming back? I don't think that's much of a. It's a hypothetical that has very little chance of happening in reality, is what I would say. It doesn't mean that I'm saying Jimmy will definitely get moved or Paul George is definitely leaving LA. It means that if those options are not there, they're going to trade a bunch of picks and to get somebody.
Yes.
They're not going to sit on their hands, and they're not going to say, hey, I'm paying DeMar DeRozan $35 million a year. Like they're not going to do something ridiculous. Well, they might do something ridiculous, but it's not going to be
DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan is probably
no. They're going to something, and part of the reason why the answer is I don't know is that I really believe this is going to be one of the more active trade deadlines, most active trade periods in recent memory.
Yes.
Because I do think with that second apron taking a foothold, teams are going to react. And some teams are going to look to take advantage of teams that are panic selling, but there will be panic sellers. And I think the Sixers are pretty uniquely positioned to be a trade target if teams do panic sell because of their draft picks, because of their financial flexibility. And does that mean that we necessarily know exactly who those players might be that will become available? Not really, but I would be surprised if somebody of significance, if like everything stays chalk and the Sixers have no chance, I would be very surprised if that happens. Very surprised. And I think Daryl's going to prioritize big game hunting. Like I think that press conference was pretty freaking clear yesterday.
See what happens there, Al? You ask and you get an answer. May not have been what you wanted, but you got an answer.
Oh wow. Ash coming in with another super chat before the show ends. Change of pace to end the show. After watching the Wolves last night, it made you think how crazy fully healthy Joel Embiid has become. This year, he made Wolves bigs look like JV players versus varsity center.
In that game, he dropped 50.
Yeah.
On that Minnesota defense.
Real good game.
A lot of reaching in from Rudy Gobert. A lot of, listen, man, I think we say it all the time. Joel Embiid's really damn good, especially when he's healthy. Even when he's not healthy, he's out there dropping 50 balls in a big game in the final game of the season that they lost. And obviously there are drawbacks with building around Joel, but guy's really damn good. And matchups in the playoffs oftentimes are as important as what you have on the roster, right? And this is what it is. I guess that's probably a good segue. We wanted to talk briefly, at least, about Wolves Nuggets.
Good.
And the Knicks game, which
so good.
I did tweet last night that it was like watching the Harlem Globetrotters, the way that game was being officiated, because some of those calls, and the one that really stuck with me, it's one thing to miss on the kick ball call that it went off Neesmith's hand. You missed some bang bang calls. All right. To go to the video review and overturn a call where Jalen Brunson is body checking somebody and then gets the ball is one of the most absurd things I've ever seen from an official in an NBA game, and really just drives home the narrative about the league wanting the Knicks and New York to be good. I'm not saying that that's true, right? I'm not going to be conspiracy brain Kyle up here. But if they wanted to dispel that, they're doing a very poor job of officiating their games. That's 2 games, 2 big-time playoff games on national television that you could argue were swung by the officials. Both went in favor of New York. That's all.
No, Gene says, Devon, what did I say? Cooking for the Knicks. They're cooking the books for the Knicks. Coach Low Ricketts says the NBA desperately wants the Knicks to be relevant. They're good. They're legitimately good. Themselves. And the problem is they don't need that kind of help.
They don't. They're very good.
And that's the thing. They don't need that kind of assistance from the officials. And to see that again and to have that conversation after the Sixers game where you had 3 in that 2-minute report after the game talking about the mistakes that were made. This is bad again, Derek, to see it happen in another game 1 situation where while Indiana was up, you got to make sure you close that game out. But the officials also in a game like this have to get that right. And Derek, Kyle is right about the one play on Miles Turner, but the one for me was the kick ball.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot miss that as a kick. The hand and the foot, there's no sneaker on the hand. There's no sneaker. They don't look alike. So how do you miss that and confuse the two? Sure, you can confuse how it was tipped, but that was clear. In the moment, I'm like, kick ball, what are they talking about? Just from watching on the television, they have a different view. And then while you cannot review it, you can discuss it, though, amongst the 3 officials and say, what did you see? And correct it. They did not do that.
Yeah. I do like they will always get calls wrong. I mean, the Tyrese Maxey heroics, like he traveled and he probably jumped into the defender too. And that's okay because like they missed calls and this one benefited us and it was an incredible moment.
But they did say it was a foul afterwards.
They did say afterwards it was a foul. To Kyle's point though, I don't necessarily get them too much on missing a call, but when you go to a review, you've got to get it right.
You have to.
That's the whole point of the system.
Speaking of, I did ask you guys before the show while we're on the last night's games tip. Going to ask you again right now. We all saw the Wolves absolutely punk the Nuggets. We saw Jamal Murray have a complete meltdown and throw a heat pack onto the floor. I'm not asking, will he be suspended? Because my guess, and I think you guys will agree, is he won't be. It'll be a big fine. The question is, should he? And I do want to say, before, if anybody tries to turn this into a sour grapes thing, all 3 of us sat on this show and agreed that Joel Embiid, if it had been the regular season, would and should have been suspended for grabbing a guy's leg in midair. So with that context, should they suspend Jamal Murray for game 3?
My answer is the exact same as it was for Joel. If this was a regular season game, yes. For the playoffs, I don't want to swing a series because of that.
Yeah, and the thing about the Mitchell Robinson piece, of course, the injury I don't know how that one would have happened with the Embiid part. But this one was really bad because of throwing something on the floor aimed for the official, but you have players that could have slipped, could have done damage to themselves,
including
out
your
there on the
teammates.
floor.
Like, I mean, a lot of people turn it into cat and what would have happened? Could be anybody.
Anybody in that vicinity could have gotten. We don't know what could have happened had they slipped on that mat pad thing that he threw out there on the floor, and that was bad. So I would say yes, he should be because of that. Won't be, and I understand why he won't be because it is the playoffs. But that was ugly. That was stupid by Jamal Murray.
It was definitely stupid. It was incredible. Like, if he doesn't get, or if I don't support him being suspended, it's only because I just don't want to see the playoffs.
I don't want players to be suspended in general, let alone in the playoffs. My only counter to that is that if it had been a fan that did that, they would be ejected from the arena and they would not be able to come back. Like, your ability to be in the arena would be revoked for the foreseeable future. So by comparison, a player who is supposed to be the professional and the guy, like, you don't do those things, I wouldn't be surprised, especially because of the looking at the official. It was clearly anger at the official. On top of that, which a lot of people did not see, Jamal Murray did one of these directed at the officials during the game.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
At minimum, he's getting a massive fine. And if he gets suspended, it'll be a little disappointing just as someone who wants to see a good series. But he's been getting fucking destroyed on defense anyway. I'm not even sure that it'll be that big of a loss. He was horrendous in that game.
And that defense on the Minnesota side,
I could not be more impressed.
Boy, that was nasty. Nasty defense by Minnesota. 2-0 lead as they head back to Minneapolis for games 3 and 4. All right, let's get ready to get out of here with these 2 super chats from Mr. Rudy Poo, and we say goodbye to everybody. If you can't get a star, pivot and build around Maxey. Can't build around a guy who can't stay on the floor. Daryl, better not trade our picks.
And then a follow-up where he says a version of the same thing.
I like how throwing a second 5 spot down just to drive home.
Just to double down.
The dedication, man.
I appreciate the hater energy. Mr. Rudy Poo was listening to Kendrick and Drake this past weekend. Mr. Rudy Poo says, man, trade this dude Embiid, stupid ass. I love NY silhouette after getting eliminated. Get me a real dog like Ant.
Now, Bree, you need to clip that, but not mention the super chat part so we can get Kyle in some trouble.
Oh, my God. Listen, if anybody's getting in trouble with Joel, it's probably not me, given recent events that I can refer to. But
thanks, Mr. Rudy Poo.
Mr. Rudy Poo.
I didn't mean with Joel. I meant with the fan base. I just want to get the fans to hate you.
Yeah, seems like a great idea.
Real fast. Lego My Ego says, should Pat Bev have been suspended had Milwaukee won that game?
Yeah. 100%. That's not even debatable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basketball twice.
He still might get suspended for the start of next season. I don't think he's out of the woods on that one. So.
Yep. All right, let's say goodbye to the folks. We appreciate everybody hanging in. Remember, 2:30 Monday through Friday here for the off season. Doesn't stop for us. We're here. We're going to be here every day.
Well, my first thank you has to go to public enemy number 1, Money Marr, who called him BBL Rudy. So he is Money Marr. I know is deep in the weeds on that Drake and Kendrick battle. There we go. Thank you, Money Marr. Thank you to Dave. Thank you to Charles. Thank you to Hypothetical Man, Eugene Ross.
What up, Gene?
X-Man, Lost Sleep TV, Aaron.
What up, Aaron?
My guy, Christy. Our guy, Ash Monroe.
What up, Ash?
Puppas overseas.
Puppas hanging out.
Lego, my ego, Emmy or Emi.
Yes.
I don't know if that, correct me if I'm wrong on the final part of that, obviously. Bootzilla. Boots in the house as always. Our Fusion. We got the 2-time Super Chatter Hater of the Year, Mr. Rudy Poo, obviously.
What up?
We did have another overseas chatter today that I saw
Where we get
at the very beginning.
Where was
I think
this
they
one?
said they were in England or the
Toast.
There you go. Toast Malone.
Clever.
That's why I
like
remembered it because of that name.
I like it.
The #1 Kelly Oubre superfan / agent.
Bring back Kelly.
Phil W.
Phil.
As always. Our
What
girl
up?
Winona.
Nona.
Thank you, Winona.
Got
for
the
being
Olipop.
here. We do have the Winona know about that strawberry vanilla. I'm telling you.
She's the official.
SNL Maven Lorne Michaels is in here once again
Let
today.
us host the show, Lauren.
I'm saying.
We can get it done.
Who cares about ringing the bell? I'm trying to say live in New York. It's Saturday
No
Night
doubt.
Live.
No doubt.
We got You Better Love Somebody. Coach Lowell Ricketts, Charles.
What up, Coach?
Eric Schmidt.
Chuck.
Thank you to everybody who's here today. If you have not already.
From Lisbon, Portugal, Chris D. Look at
wow.
that.
Thank you, Chris D.
Look at
Thank
that.
you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to super producer Bree in
Love
the background, even though Derek is still being a hater
Love
about
my
my
Portuguese food.
official title. It's walking out yesterday talking trash. I will say thank you to Bree. If
I will
you
say,
have not,
it was pointed out to me that Vince was the one who actually brought it. Bree just brought it out on the set. So I'll shame on both. Shame on both.
Wow.
Chris D, send us some Portuguese
the company's
food.
falling apart. Derek's trying to get me in trouble, and then he's antagonizing Vince and Bree.
Send us some
Devon
food.
and I are the peacemakers over here.
We are. Did you guys know that my family is Cape Verdean and we speak Portuguese?
Are you making that up?
I'm not making it up. I was going to tell him to send some linguiça. That's the Portuguese sausage that we eat. And there's a lot of other stuff. Yeah. So
if you have
Chris,
not already,
my man Chris,
hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. There we go. Pulling your weight over there, numbers man.
That's all I do.
Hit the thumbs up button if you are enjoying Nikola Jokic getting destroyed in pick and roll coverage.
It looks bad.
By the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Looks bad.
Guys, we will be back once again, 2:30 tomorrow on Wednesday, 2:30 all week. 2:30 all damn off season.
When
and
I get
summer.
all of my dentist appointments. 2:30. 2:30.
I'm out of here, man.
Thank you, Bree.
Goodbye.
Great job.
That's actually a Tom Moore. Shout out Tom Moore. That's a Tom Moore.
Shout out to
joke.
Tom Moore. That's
Oh,
right.
Tom is the best. Thank you, Bree.
We all silly like the mayor.